So my name's Keith Okamoto. Thank you, Chair Ayla, Commissioners, Deputy Director Tam back there, Commission staff. First of all, I want to commend you folks for actually coming to our community and seeing firsthand what's out there. I think that's the great thing to do. I think a lot of decisions made by commissions are kind of Oahu, you know, they kind of stay over there and make decisions there, but I really appreciate you folks coming out here and taking the time, and I think that really makes a difference. So we're going to push through this fairly quickly. With me I have Kurt Inaba, our engineering division head, and we also have John Nishimura, our consultant. As any good department will do, when you don't have the expertise, you go hire them. But John, I'll give a little bit of background on John. You know some about me and Kurt. But John is the president of Fukunaga & Associates, and he has over 36 years of civil engineering experience. And I guess what should be noted, what I have down here, is that John has been involved with the evolution of the Hawaii Water Plan since its inception, was it back in 1990? And subsequent updates in 98, 2008, and 2014. So he's been involved with this process for many years. Real quickly, next slide. The Department of Water Supply, we operate and maintain 23 water systems across the island. In those water systems, we have over 70 sources. We have, let's see, close to 200 tanks, 79 booster pumps, over 250 PRVs, and over 1,000 miles of pipe. We have 41,000 customers plus, and we serve approximately 110,000 of the island's population. And we do this with 160 employees over one main office and 4 base yards. So just because of the geographic area of this island, we are stretched as far as manpower and resources. In this particular area, next slide, is our, I guess the area in question, the Keauhou Aquifer system. And if you see our water system, it does extend. This is our North Kona water system, one of our 23. So it extends from north to south, almost the full extent of the aquifer system from Keauhou to Keauhou, as well as from sea level to approximately 5,000 foot elevation at its highest point. In this particular source, we have particular system, we have 12 water sources, 6 of which are in the high level and 6 in the basal. Currently pumping approximately 11 million gallons a day. We have 57 tanks, nearly 200 miles of pipelines. And actually, I'll just cover it, Kurt. So, you know, we have quite a bit, but really we want to hear your questions. We want to know what your folks are interested in, what kind of information you need from us. So maybe we can skip that one, skip to the next one. Real quickly, I just wanted to show that, you know, we expressed a little bit at the site visit some of the commitment we have in the area as far as capital improvement, financing, and funding. So in this area, what this kind of shows is throughout the area, we talked about some of the Mauka-Makai corridors to take advantage of the better quality high-level sources and bring that down Makai. So this graphic kind of shows that. Sorry, I'm not tall enough. Maybe John could do this. But yeah, basically, yeah, so this is that Palani transmission, and this is a Waiaha corridor that we're also working on. The Palani transmission, if I could also mention, this was a public-public partnership. I think we talked about public-private partnership, but we also worked with the State Department of Hawaiian Homes with this project. So we shared, you know, it was like a win-win situation for both of us. We both came together, you know, looked at what each other's goals were and came up with a solution to see each other's projects come through. Maybe the next one. Okay, so yeah, this is a lot of graphs. I know engineers, we like a lot of graphs, but we can bypass that. Basically what that shows is some of the improvements we saw with chlorides down in Kailua Town as a result of that Palani transmission project. So hopefully this is something that you folks were looking for from us, authorized planned use as it relates to water. So Dwayne mentioned, you know, the land use approvals and some of the things and how it's tied to water commitments. So on this table, we wanted to show, based on that definition in the water code, what water we have set aside for those projects that have some form of land use approval. These doesn't, you know, all of these numbers don't mean they have 100% approval. In other words, they can break ground tomorrow, but they have some form, like perhaps a change of zone, but they may not have taken it to the subdivision stage. There are various layers of land use approvals, as you folks all know. But basically, we wanted to give this to you folks, and it would be actually a conservative number, if anything. So our total is 5.5 million gallons per day. It includes water commitments, developer agreements. Some of that was touched upon. Developer agreements is when development that is of substantial size needs more water than can be accommodated from the excess capacity we have in our system. Things like Hawaiian Homes, Forest City are examples of such developments. There's private ones as well. Let's see, what else? We were asked by commission staff to see if we could research building permits. And as you can see, what we didn't want to do is double count the commitments. You know, if they had a land use approval and we counted them under developer agreement or water commitment, we didn't want to also count them under building permits. So our staff took, it was kind of a line by line on a several hundreds of lines worth of information that we received. And we think we did a good job of filtering that out. So that's what you see here. And we also worked with Roy folks on other private wells. I just want to mention that that number is also what we feel is a conservative number, because I think it's working with Paul folks. We got a spreadsheet from Seaworm staff, and it's actual full capacity of those wells. Future demand on top of what they're currently pumping. So say they're pumping 250,000 gallons a day, but they're capable of pumping up to 500,000 gallons per day. We included that extra 250. Okay. Next slide, yeah. Okay, and this is where if can, I would like to have John share some of his experience with you, because, he was involved from back in 1990. He worked on our most recent update, which was adopted or finalized in 2010, and is currently our consultant for a further update.
I'll try and wrap this up quickly, but some of the graphs and the questions that you asked for will be on the next parts of the presentation. Next slide. Yeah, so we worked on the water use and development plan, which I'll call the 2010 version, original, that has been released and adopted by the Commission as well as the County Council. The objective of that one was to do the initial assessment of the entire island, utilizing the same basic measuring stick, and try to develop planning projections of water use. Some of the findings and recommendations that we had based on, we don't have that slide. I'll just read off of my iPhone. As I mentioned, it was an island-wide thing, and part of the reason for doing that was to identify sensitive and non-sensitive areas. And of course, because of limited resources, we want to prioritize the county's resources on the sensitive areas. So we brought up this concept of full build-out scenarios, and some of you may be familiar with that, but it actually ties back to what Dwayne was talking about, utilizing the LUPAG and zoning, which are the two primary county land use policies. So LUPAG, we use that. We use conservative planning, established planning, water planning numbers to give you a full build-out scenario, meaning all the full area is built out to its full potential. And everybody says, and we're familiar with that it's not going to happen. However, those numbers, when we did crank it out, I would say 70 to 75% of the island could sustain that level of development. So we identified several hotspots, of which the Keauhou Aquifer was the highest priority. So as a result of that, we're doing this update. And what we're trying to do is actually take the real numbers. Instead of using typical planning numbers, we're going to use the actual data to look at trends. And so that's where we are now. And as part of the framework for the preparation of these plans, we developed a high, medium, and low projection. Right now, the basis that we're using is population. And we feel that population is reflective of the activity in the area. So the planning numbers that we'll use, or planning projections, the population projections, would be consistent with the planning department. This is kind of not tied or linked to specific developments, because the infill will occur based on planning projections of population, because the market, rises and lowers, and the actual build out and infill will occur. We feel that the planning projections would be a better indicator. However, the authorized plan use that we brought up, that's this here, which is the current condition plus the 5 authorized plan use that, again, Keith had mentioned. That's what this level is right now. So at this point, we're down here. At some point, the infill will occur to reach that level. And of course, the authorized planned use will adjust based on planning decisions made by both the planning department and the county Department of Water, as well as the State Land Use Commission. Okay. So basically, are you gonna wrap up?
If you're done.
Yeah, I'm done. But basically, that's where we're at right now. We're still doing the work. We're working closely with the planning department and the Department of Water, identifying areas where the water unit rates can be considered more realistic. And the infill procedures would also be more parallel with the way things are being developed. Okay, any questions? Yes.
Sorry, just so again, so I try to be clear on understanding
Of the graph?
the graph. The purple, it looks purple to me. I don't know.
That's okay, I'm colorblind.
Okay. The purple line is your high estimate, and you're assuming population growth. That's your indicator. So what's the percent of population growth that you're assuming per year?
It varied, huh? Or is it typical?
Based on the last general plan.
Yeah, so the general plan numbers are being worked on right now. So this is using the latest, which was 2005. So that's a projection based on that number. The county planning department, I believe, is in the process of updating the general plan. So we'll use the current numbers at that time.
So I forget, I think it was last year, right? Didn't we have the biggest population growth here on Hawaii Island out of the other counties, 20-something%? So you guys calculating that number or based off of what you had projected it to?
This is work in progress, if you don't mind, but we've used the projections that were best available at that time, and that's why we want to do this reality check to actually look at the numbers, look at what the existing use actually covers and how the water is being used, right? And then from there, then prepare projections based on better, more detailed planning information. We had used higher numbers for unit rates, and now that we're looking at the meter data and the actual type of unit and the connections, it's pretty interesting when you look at the distribution and the type of water use and patterns, because certain areas use certain types of units use more water than others, and it'll depend on the type of development that occurs. Now it seems to be moving more toward workforce, people, normal people type development, and that water consumption is much less than maybe a resort type or second home or luxury home type development. So I think evaluating those kinds of things can help the county establish policies to make sure that different types of development have certain kinds of controls so that water is used most efficiently.
Okay, I'd like to see some ground truthing with that. It sure looks like what I see getting built is pretty water intensive, certainly not in the 400 gallon per household per day, but more,
Yes, again, we need to kind of compile the information and look at the type of patterns that are being.
And how much money is budgeted for source?
I think actually, like we mentioned earlier at the site visit, was that we, like everybody else, we have an annual budget, and we budget approximately $1 million a year for source development, but that's island-wide, not just for this particular region. Not to say that that's how much we develop, but yeah, that's what we budget yearly.
What do you think it costs to develop each, say, million gallons a day of source?
It depends on where it's located. The deeper you go, the more expensive it is.
Available power, available power.
Yeah, normally we split our projects into two phases. One is an exploratory phase, and then production phase. We want to make sure that the water is there in quantity and quality that would, justify it being a production well. So that first phase alone can cost $1 million. We have to do the preliminary design, the environmental assessment, things like that. Site is typically a challenge if we don't own property already. Yeah.
I'd be curious to know what your expectations are as far as the cost per million gallons a day.
Okay. And going back to your previous questions, actually our engineering staff did an assessment in this area, and looking at the residential development in this area, we're just slightly above 400 gallons per day. So that's right in tune with what we've been using across the board as what we call a water unit, typically what we assign to a residential household development. It's just that if there's enough large users or larger meter type, it might skew the average per meter consumption a little higher. But anyway, I just wanted to quickly sum it up because I know you guys are busy. The one right before that, right? Yeah, those are good too. But, anyway, in summary, the department feels that designation is not required at this time. You've seen some of the graph. We'll fine tune it. That's what we hired these guys for. And we'll incorporate the latest population information. But we've seen what existing and future needs are as far as water is concerned versus the sustainable yield. So we don't think we're there yet. I kind of like, I'm in the same mode as John, put it in context. I like this, like we're driving in the car with our eyes closed waiting for it to exit. I don't think that's what we want to think of our situation that we're dealing with right now. I couldn't elaborate on some of the protective mechanisms currently in place, not only county, state, federal, as far as protecting natural resources.